The golden retriever puppy had other plans. Sophie Martinez had walked dogs professionally for 3 years in Central Park, and she prided herself on her control. 6 leashes, 6 dogs, all sizes, all temperaments. She managed them like a conductor leading an orchestra. Confident, capable, never a moment of chaos. Until Max, the 8-week-old golden retriever, belonged to Mrs. Henderson, a wealthy widow on the Upper East Side who'd just adopted him and needed Sophie to start socialization walks. "He's a sweetheart," Mrs. Henderson had promised, her wrinkled hands stroking the puppy's soft fur. "Just keep him close." "He's still learning the world." Sophie should have known better than to trust the word just when it came to puppies. In her experience, puppies were tiny anarchists wrapped in fur, determined to test every boundary and challenge every assumption about order and control. But Mrs. Henderson was a long-time quiet 5 years of walking her previous dog, a dignified old Labrador named Churchill who'd passed away 6 months ago. The widow had been devastated, spent months in mourning, and Sophie had genuinely worried about her. So when Mrs. Henderson had called last week, voice bright with renewed purpose, saying she'd adopted a puppy and needed Sophie's expertise, Sophie had felt profound relief. Until she'd met Max. The puppy was adorable, all floppy ears and oversized paws, and that expression of perpetual wonder that golden retrievers seemed to be born with. But he was also curious, fearless, and possessed of an escape artist's natural talent. In their first walk together 2 days ago, he'd slipped his collar twice, both times requiring Sophie to sprint after him while managing her other charges. "Third time's the charm," Sophie had muttered that morning, triple-checking Max's collar before adding him to her morning pack. She kept him on a separate leash from her regular 6, maintaining what she thought was an unbreakable grip. She'd been wrong. It was a Tuesday morning in late October, the kind of crisp autumn day when Central Park transformed into a cathedral of gold and crimson leaves. The air smelled of earth and dying leaves and that indefinable something that meant winter was coming, but not quite yet. Sophie loved this time of year, the park emptier than summer, the dogs more energetic in the cooler air, the light slanting through trees and shafts of amber and gold. She'd entered through the West 72nd Street entrance at exactly 8:15 a.m., her usual time, following her usual route toward the sheep meadow. Her pack today consisted of regulars: Biscuit the Beagle, Princess the Toy Poodle, Duke the German Shepherd mix, Chloe the Border Collie, Daisy the Labradoodle, and Murphy the Corgi. 6 dogs she knew intimately, their quirks, their triggers, their personalities, and Max, the wild card. Sophie talked to her dogs as she walked. She always did, a constant stream of narration that kept them engaged and responsive. "See that? That's a squirrel." "No, Biscuit, we don't chase squirrels." I know, it's very exciting, but good boy, Biscuit, good, leave it, and Max, that's a pigeon." "They're not as interesting as they look, trust me." "Murphy, don't pull, good." "Princess, you're being perfect as always, such a good girl." The explosion of motion happened so fast Sophie almost didn't process it. One moment, Max was trotting peacefully beside her left leg, his puppy attention focused on a leaf tumbling across the path. The next moment, his entire body went rigid with focus. His ears pricked forward. His tail, which had been wagging in lazy contentment, went straight up like an antenna. Sophie followed his gaze across the sheep meadow and felt her stomach drop. A man stood alone in the center of the open grass, perhaps 70 yards away. Even at this distance, Sophie could see the expensive cut of his black suit, the way he stood with absolute stillness while talking on his phone, the way 3 other men in similar suits were positioned at careful intervals around him, not close enough to intrude, but close enough to be protection. Security. The man had private security in Central Park. Before Sophie could process this observation, or wonder what kind of person needed bodyguards for a morning phone call, Max made his decision. With a twist that would have impressed Houdini, the puppy slipped his collar completely, not loosened it, not pulled free, but somehow compressed his puppy's skull and slipped the entire thing over his head like a magic trick, and ran. "Max!" Sophie's voice came out strangled with panic. The puppy ignored her completely. 8 pounds of Goldman determination rocketed across the sheep meadow, little legs pumping, ears flying, tongue lolling in an expression of pure joy. He looked like a commercial for puppy food, adorable, unstoppable, aimed like a missile at the one person Sophie absolutely did not want him to reach, the man in the suit. Sophie ran after him, her mind racing through worst-case scenarios. The man would be angry. his security would intervene. Max would be kicked or hurt, or God forbid, the man would sue Mrs. Henderson. Sophie had insurance, but still, this was bad. This was very, very bad. Her 6 other dogs, bless their well-trained souls, kept pace with her. They'd been through enough walks to understand that when Sophie ran, they ran with her. Duke matched her stride easily, his German Shepherd athleticism making it look effortless. Murphy's corgi legs worked over time. Princess, being carried along by pure momentum and determination, somehow kept up. But none of them could catch Max. The puppy had locked onto his target with the single-minded focus that golden retrievers were famous for. Whatever he'd seen in that man, whatever had called to him across 70 yards of open grass, was the most important thing in Max's young universe. Sophie watched in horror as the distance closed. 50 yards, 40-30. The man ended his phone call. Slowly, as if sensing something, he turned and looked down just as Max launched himself through the air with the confidence of a puppy who'd never learned that he couldn't fly. Sophie expected anger. Expected the man to step back, to gesture to his security, to do something that showed annoyance or displeasure. Instead, he smiled. It transformed his entire face. From this distance, even running, Sophie could see it the way his expression went from cold and businesslike to warm, and genuinely delighted in the space of a heartbeat. He crouched smoothly, catching Max mid-leap, and the puppy proceeded to do what puppies do best, cover every available surface with love. Muddy paw prints bloomed across the immaculate black suit like flowers. Max's tongue found the man's face, his ear, his perfectly styled dark hair. His little body wiggled with such enthusiasm that the man had to brace himself to keep from toppling over, and he laughed. Not a polite chuckle or an awkward attempt at good humor. A real laugh, warm, genuine, surprised, the kind of sound that came from somewhere deep and authentic. The kind of laugh that suggested this was the best thing that had happened to him in a long time. Sophie finally reached them, breathless and mortified, her 6 well-behaved dogs arranging themselves in a perfect semicircle behind her without needing to be told. They sat, watching the scene with varying expressions of interest. Biscuit looked confused. Princess appeared judgmental. Duke seemed amused. "I am so sorry," Sophie gasped, hands on her knees, trying to catch her breath. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment. "He's new, he slipped his collar, he never I'll pay for dry cleaning. I promise, multiple dry cleanings, whatever it costs. I'm so incredibly sorry." The man stood slowly, still holding Max, who was now contentedly chewing on what looked like a $2,000 Ermenegildo Zegna tie. Up close, Sophie could see exactly how expensive everything about him was, the suit custom-tailored, the watch on his wrist probably worth more than her car, the shoes Italian leather that now bore puppy-sized mud prints, and his eyes. Dark brown, warm as espresso, framed by lashes that seemed unfair on a man who already looked like he'd stepped off the cover of GQ Italia. Those eyes met hers, and Sophie felt the earth shift slightly beneath her feet. "Don't apologize," he said, his voice accented Italian, definitely Italian, with that musical quality that made even simple words sound romantic. "He has excellent taste." Sophie blinked, her brain still catching up with the fact that this stranger was being nice instead of angry. In ties. In people, his smile widened, reaching his eyes, creating small lines at the corners that suggested he smiled often, or at least he used to. "I'm Dante Romano." He extended his free hand, the one not currently supporting the puppy who was systematically destroying his clothing. Sophie shook it, very aware of several things at once. The calluses on his palm that suggested he did more than sit behind a desk. The strength in his grip that was controlled and gentle. The way his thumb brushed across her knuckles just once before releasing, so brief she might have imagined it. "Sophie," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Sophie Martinez. And that terror is Max, who's apparently determined to ruin your entire outfit. It's just a suit." Dante looked down at the puppy, his expression so soft it made Sophie's chest ache. "Right, Piccolo, just fabric. Nothing important. That suit probably costs more than my rent," Sophie said before she could stop herself. "Then your rent is too low." He said it seriously, without a trace of condescension or judgment, like he was simply stating a fact about New York real estate that bothered him. "You walk dogs for a living?" 6 days a week. Sophie gestured to her pack, who were still sitting in perfect formation, waiting patiently. This is my morning route. These are my regulars, and Max is. An experiment in humility, apparently. Dante studied the dogs, then her, with an intensity that made Sophie feel like she was being cataloged, assessed, understood in ways she didn't quite grasp. You're very good at it. They're all watching you, waiting for permission to approach. That kind of training takes years. He was right, and Sophie felt a small flush of pride. Most people saw dog walking as a low-skill job, something anyone could do. But what she did required understanding canine psychology, reading body language, managing pack dynamics, maintaining consistent training across multiple animals with different temperaments and backgrounds. She'd worked hard to build her reputation. I love dogs, she admitted. More than most people, honestly. They're honest in ways humans rarely are. What you see is what you get, no hidden agendas, no complicated politics. I understand that completely. Dante scratched behind Max's ears with practiced ease, and the puppy made a sound of pure, transcendent bliss. His little eyes closed, his tongue lolled out. His entire body seemed to melt into satisfied pudding. This one, though, he's special. Knew exactly where he needed to be. Destroying designer menswear? Finding the one person in this entire park who needed to meet a puppy today. Dante's expression shifted, became more serious, almost vulnerable. The smile remained, but something shadowed his eyes, something old and tired and heavy. You have no idea how much I needed this. Him, you. Sophie's mouth went dry. The way he'd said it, you, with a kind of weight that made it mean more than just a generic reference. Like he meant specifically her, Sophie Martinez, not just any dog walker who'd lost control of a puppy. I what? It was all she could manage. Before Dante could answer, one of the other men in black suits approached. He was tall, stone-faced, professional in the way that suggested military training. He spoke quietly in rapid Italian, his tone urgent but controlled. Sophie didn't understand the words, but she understood the body language. Something required Dante's attention, and it required it now. Dante's expression hardened for just a moment, a flash of something cold and dangerous that made Sophie's breath catch before smoothing back into careful calm. It happened so quickly she might have imagined it, except the air around them seemed to change temperature for a heartbeat. I have to go, he said, reluctance clear in his voice. He looked down at Max, then at Sophie, and something in his expression suggested this was costing him more than it should. But I'll see you again, soon. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact, delivered with the certainty of someone who always got what he wanted. Sophie found herself nodding before her brain engaged. I walk here every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Morning route 8 to 10. Usually start at West 72nd, work my way around the sheep meadow and Great Lawn. Why was she telling him this? Why was she giving this stranger, this clearly wealthy, clearly powerful, clearly somewhat dangerous stranger her exact schedule? But Dante's smile returned, brilliant and genuine. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. 8 to 10. The sheep meadow and Great Lawn. He repeated it like he was committing it to memory, each word important. I'll remember. Then he did something that made Sophie's heart stop completely. From his suit pocket, somehow still containing anything after Max's assault, he pulled a business card. Heavy cardstock, embossed, elegant. He produced a pen and wrote something on the back in quick, decisive strokes. My private number, he said, handing it to her. The card was still warm from his pocket. In case Max ever runs to me again. His smile became something softer, more intimate. Or if you ever need anything, Sophie Martinez. Anything at all. I mean that. Before Sophie could respond, before she could even process what was happening, Dante gently transferred Max back into her arms. Their fingers brushed during the exchanges, warm, slightly rough, leaving trails of electricity wherever they touched her skin. Arrivederci, Sophie, he murmured. Then, looking down at Max, Arrivederci, Piccolo. Thank you for being brave enough to run to a stranger. He walked away, flanked by his suited companions, his stride confident despite the mud and slobber decorating his expensive clothes. Sophie watched him cross the meadow, watched him pull out his phone and immediately engage in what looked like an intense conversation, watched him disappear into the tree line near the bandshell. She looked down at Max, who gazed up at her with innocent golden eyes and an expression that could only be described as smug. What? Sophie whispered, still breathless, still reeling. Did you just get us into? The puppy licked her hand with his tiny pink tongue. Biscuit whined softly, clearly confused about why they'd stopped their walk. Princess yawned with aristocratic boredom. Duke, the wisest of the pack, looked at Sophie with what she swore was understanding, like he knew exactly what had just happened even if she didn't quite grasp it yet. Sophie looked at the business card in her hand. Heavy, expensive, embossed with Romano Enterprises in elegant script. On the back, in decisive masculine handwriting, a phone number and 2 words. "Call me." Sophie tucked the card carefully into her jacket pocket, got Max's collar back on triple check this time, and resumed her walk. But her hands were shaking slightly, and her heart was racing, and somewhere in her chest something had cracked open that she wasn't sure how to close again. Behind her, if she'd looked back, she would have seen Dante Romano standing at the edge of the tree line, phone call forgotten, watching her walk away with an expression that suggested he was equally shaken, equally surprised, equally certain that his life had just irrevocably changed. But Sophie didn't look back. She kept walking, her pack flowing around her like water, professional and controlled and giving no indication that their walker had just experienced something that felt like fate disguised as chaos. "Okay," Sophie said aloud to her dogs and the universe in general. "Okay, that just happened." Max barked once, cheerful and proud. Somehow Sophie knew Max had just made the best decision of both their lives. She just wasn't sure whether to thank him or panic, perhaps both. Definitely both. Sophie Martinez's life existed in carefully organized chaos, which is to say, it looked like chaos to outsiders, but to Sophie, everything had its place, its purpose, its rhythm. At 25 years old, she'd built a thriving dog-walking business through nothing but word of mouth, reputation, and an uncanny ability to handle even the most difficult animals. No advertising, no website, no social media presence beyond a simple Instagram account that mostly featured photos of her client dogs. Just Sophie, her skills, and 18 dogs who belonged to 16 of Manhattan's busiest, wealthiest, or most demanding pet owners. Her studio apartment in Washington Heights was tiny 432 square feet according to the lease, though Sophie suspected the landlord had been generous with his measuring tape. Barely room for her full-size bed shoved against the far wall, a small desk where she planned routes and managed her chaotic schedule, and a bookshelf crammed with dog training manuals, veterinary guides, and worn paperback novels she read before bed. The bathroom was so small you had to step out to change your mind, as her father liked to joke. The kitchen consisted of a mini fridge, a 2-burner stove, and a microwave that dated from before Sophie was born. The closet was a tension rod with a curtain. But it was hers. Every inch of it, paid for with her own money, earned through early mornings and Sophie and the pure satisfaction of doing work she loved. The walls were covered with photos not of family or friends, but of dogs. Every client she'd ever had, carefully photographed and labeled with their name and dates. It was her version of a resume, a trophy wall, proof that she was good at what she did. In the corner, a box held emergency supplies, extra leashes, collars in various sizes, first aid kit, treats for difficult moments, water bottles, waste bags. Another box held her business administration, receipts, client contracts, insurance paperwork, tax documents. Sophie's mother had taught her to keep impeccable records, never give them an excuse to say you're unprofessional. Mia. Her alarm went off every morning at 5:45 a.m., no exceptions. By 6:15, she was out the door walking the 10 blocks to the subway. By 7:30, she was collecting her first client of the day. By 8 o'clock, she was in Central Park with her morning pack. The routine was sacred. The routine was everything. Her father had wanted her to go to college. Miguel Martinez, manager of a successful restaurant in Corona, Queens, had dreams of his daughter becoming a lawyer or a doctor. You're smart, Sophie. Too smart to waste your life picking up dog shit in the park. I'm not wasting anything. Papa, I'm building something. Her mother had wanted her to work in the family restaurant. It would be hers someday after all. Elena Martinez had spent 30 years building Estrella Barrucua from a tiny takeout counter to a thriving establishment with a James Beard nomination. You understand business. You understand hard work. You could take over when your father and I retire. Keep it in the family. Mama, I love the restaurant. But I don't love cooking. I love dogs. Sophia had wanted to spend every waking moment with dogs. So she'd done what Martinez women always did when faced with other people's expectations. She'd chosen her own path and worked twice as hard to prove it was the right one. 3 years later, she had those 18 regular clients. A waiting list of 12 more that she genuinely couldn't accommodate without sacrificing quality, and a reputation as the best dog walker on the Upper West and Upper East Sides. Reliable Sophie. Responsible Sophie. Never late, never canceled, never lost a dog. Until Max, she'd been proud of that perfect record. Now, standing in her apartment that evening after the most surreal morning of her life, looking at Dante Romano's business card propped against her lamp on the kitchen counter, Sophie questioned everything she thought she knew about control. She Googled him, of course. What woman wouldn't? The first search result had made her breath catch. Dante Romano, CEO of Romano Enterprises. International import-export business with offices in New York, Chicago, Milan, and Hong Kong. Estimated net worth according to Forbes, $500 million, age 34. Education, University of Milan, MBA from Wharton, unmarried. The images showed the same man from the park impeccably dressed in various expensive suits, looking serious at business functions, shaking hands with politicians and celebrities. But none of the photos captured what Sophie had seen. The warmth of his laugh, the gentleness in his hands when he'd held Max, the shadow of something painful behind his eyes when he'd said, "You have no idea how much I needed this." She'd scrolled deeper, finding more information. Romano Enterprises dealt primarily in luxury goods and fine art. Dante sat on the boards of 3 animal welfare organizations. He donated $2 million to the ASPCA last year. His mother had died when he was 16. His father, Giovanni Romano, had been some kind of businessman in Milan. The articles were vague about details, which Sophie found curious. There were society photos. Dante at charity galas, always with beautiful women on his arm models, actresses, heiresses, but never the same woman twice. In every photo, he looked polished and powerful and somehow distant, like he was present physically but absent in some more important way. Nothing about the photos matched the man who'd laughed so genuinely at a puppy attack. Stop it, Sophie told herself firmly, turning away from her laptop. He was just being nice. Rich guys are nice sometimes when puppies attack them and ruin their suits. It doesn't mean anything. He probably gets hit on 100 times a day. You're just the dog walker who couldn't control a puppy. He's forgotten about you already. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Mia, and Sophie grabbed it gratefully, eager for the distraction. "Mia, did you seriously give your number to a millionaire in the park?" "Girl, details, all the details," Sophie groaned. She texted Mia right after the encounter, still reeling, her hands shaking while she typed out a brief, "Oh my God, I just met the hottest man alive, and I think I'm dying." Mia had been in a meeting and unable to respond immediately, but apparently her meeting was over. "Sophie, I didn't give him my number." "He gave me his. There's a difference." "Maya, even better. That means he wants you to call him." "Call him? Right now. Do it." "Sophie, and say what?" "Hi, thanks for not being mad my puppy attacked you and destroyed your $3,000 suit. Want to grab coffee?" "No way. Absolutely not. He's probably forgotten it already." "Mia, men like that don't forget anything. Especially not cute dog walkers who literally ran into their lives. Trust me, Sophie, he's thinking about you right now." "Sophie, you're delusional. He's probably at some fancy restaurant with a supermodel, not thinking about the girl who can't control her dogs." "Mia, first of all, it was one dog and he was a puppy. Second, I saw the photo you sent. That man was smiling, not polite smile. Real smile. When was the last time you saw a billionaire genuinely smile in public?" "Sophie, he's not a billionaire." "Just a half billionaire, Mia. Oh well then, totally normal." "Definitely won't call you." Sophie smiled despite herself, then set the phone down. Mia was a romantic. Always had been. She'd been married for 2 years to her college sweetheart and believed everyone else should be equally lucky in love. In reality, Dante Romano probably had a dozen women trying to get his attention every single day. Why would he remember the dog walker who couldn't control a puppy? She made herself a simple dinner pasta with jarred sauce, nothing fancy, and tried to focus on her schedule for tomorrow. Wednesday met afternoon clients, including a particularly neurotic miniature schnauzer who needed exactly 42 minutes of exercise or he became insufferable. But her mind kept drifting back to the park, to Dante's laugh, to the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world, to the calluses on his palm that suggested he was more than just a businessman in expensive suits. She was washing her single plate when her phone rang. Unknown number. Sophie's heart jumped into her throat. She stared at the screen, paralyzed. It was probably spam. Definitely spam. No one called from unknown numbers anymore unless they were trying to sell you car insurance or scam you. But what if ... She answered, her voice slightly breathless. Hello? Sophie Martinez? That accented voice, smooth as expensive whiskey, warm as summer evenings. This is Dante Romano, from the park this morning. I hope I'm not calling too late. Sophie nearly dropped the phone into the sink. She grabbed for it, fumbled, caught it, pressed it back to her ear with trembling hands. No, not too late at all. Hi. This is fine, hi. Smooth, Sophie, very smooth. Definitely the eloquent response he was hoping for. She could hear the smile in his voice, warm and slightly amused. Max's owner, Mrs. Henderson, she called me an hour ago. Sophie's stomach dropped. Oh God, what did he destroy? I swear, I'll pay for whatever, nothing. He didn't destroy anything. Dante's laugh was warm, genuine. She called because I asked her to. I wanted your last name so I could find you properly. Not just wait and hope you'd walk through the park again and remember the strange man who let a puppy attack him. You ... What? Sophie sank onto her bed, her legs suddenly unreliable. I wanted to see you again, he said simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. And I didn't want to leave it to chance or coincidence. So I called every dog walking service in Manhattan until I found someone who knew you. Took about 40 minutes and a lot of confused receptionist, then convinced them to give me Mrs. Henderson's number, which required some creative persuasion. Mrs. Henderson was kind enough to confirm you were her walker and give me your last name. Sophie's mind reeled with the logistics of this. He'd spent almost an hour tracking her down, through cold calls and persistence, and probably throwing his considerable influence around, just to get her name. That's very thorough, she managed weakly. I'm a thorough person when I want something. A pause heavy with meaning. And I wanted to find you, Sophie. Very much. But why? The question escaped before Sophie could stop it. I'm a dog walker. You're... She gestured helplessly at her tiny apartment, at the phone. At the phone? At the universe that clearly contained different classes of people who didn't normally intersect. You're you. I'm me, Dante agreed, his voice soft. And right now, me is someone who hasn't stopped thinking about you since you ran across that meadow with 6 dogs following you like you were their queen. Someone who can't remember the last time you laughed the way I laughed this morning. Someone who watched you apologize for something that was the best thing to happen to him in months, maybe years, and thought, I need to know this woman. I need her in my life. Sophie couldn't breathe. The words were too much, too fast, too intense for someone she'd met for less than 5 minutes that morning. Is this okay? Dante asked, his confidence wavering slightly. Me calling? If it's too forward, tell me. I'll apologize and never bother you again. I promise. But please know it's genuine, Sophie. This I send single quotes T ... I don't do this. I don't chase after women. I don't track people down. But something about you, something about this morning, I couldn't let it go. It's okay, Sophie heard herself say. It's more than okay. I'm just ... surprised, and slightly terrified. But mostly surprised. Surprised good or surprised bad? Surprised ... confused maybe? Sophie laughed, slightly hysterical. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and this will have been a very weird dream brought on by too much coffee. If you're dreaming, I'm having the same dream. His voice became warmer, more intimate. Which would be impossible, so perhaps we should accept this as real. Okay, Sophie whispered. Real, this is real. I'd like to take you to dinner, Dante said. If you're interested. If this isn't too strange or too fast or too much. Sophie looked around her tiny apartment at her secondhand furniture and her simple life and her wall of dog photos. She thought about the images she'd seen online of Dante Romano at charity galas and business functions, surrounded by Manhattan's elite, moving in circles that probably didn't include dog walkers from Washington Heights. I don't think we exactly run in the same circles, she said quietly. Good. He said it with such conviction that Sophie believed him. I'm tired of my circles, Sophie. Tired of people who want something from me, who see Romano Enterprises instead of just ... Dante. You didn't know who I was this morning. You just saw a man being attacked by a puppy, And you were mortified and apologetic and completely, beautifully real. His voice became even softer, more vulnerable. Do you know how rare that is? How exhausting it becomes, never knowing if people want you or what you represent. Always wondering if the woman smiling at you is smiling at your face or your net worth. Always second-guessing every interaction, every conversation, every relationship. Sophie thought about her own life, about building her business through reputation instead of connections, about the satisfaction of knowing her clients chose her because she was good at what she did, not because of who she knew or what she could offer beyond her skills. I think I understand, she said softly. Maybe not exactly the same, but yeah, I get it. Say yes, Sophie, please, one dinner. If you hate it, if I'm terrible company, if this whole thing is awkward and weird, I'll never ask again. But give me one chance to not be Dante Romano, the CEO. Let me just be Dante, the guy who really wants to have dinner with the woman who has the most amazing laugh and the most patient way of talking to a beagle who clearly wanted to chase that squirrel. Sophie smiled, remembering Biscuit's intense focus on that squirrel, her practice redirection. You noticed that? I noticed everything about you, Dante said simply. How could I not? Sophie's heart did somersaults. This was crazy. This was moving too fast. This was definitely going to end in some kind of disaster. Okay, she said anyway. Yes, one dinner. Okay? She could hear the smile in his voice, the relief, the joy. Yes, really? Really, yes, one dinner. Friday, 7 o'clock? He was talking faster now, energized. I know a place quiet, private, excellent food, but not pretentious. Small, intimate. I'll send a car for you at 6:45. I can meet you. Sophie started. Sophie? His voice became gentle but firm, brooking no argument. Let me send a car, please. It's not about money or showing off or any kind of power dynamic. It's about making sure you're safe, comfortable, that you don't have to worry about logistics or parking or anything except enjoying the evening. That's all. I promise. Something in his tone made Sophie relent. This wasn't arrogance or patriarchal nonsense, it was something else. Something protective that simultaneously thrilled and slightly scared her. Okay, she said. Friday, 7. You can send a car. Thank you. The relief in his voice was palpable. I'll text you details tomorrow, the car service, the driver's name, my personal number again in case you need anything. And Sophie? Yes? Thank you for saying yes. For not running away when Max attacked me. For not hanging up when I admitted I tracked you down like some kind of stalker. For ... Existing, I think. Thank you for existing. After they hung up, Sophie sat in silence for a long moment. Her phone still warm in her hand, her heart still racing, her mind still trying to process what had just happened. Then she called Mia, who screamed so loudly that Sophie had to hold the phone away from her ear. I told you. Maya shrieked with the righteous fury of someone who'd been proven correct. I told you he was thinking about you. I told you he'd call. Sophie laughed, genuine and bright and slightly breathless. You did. You were absolutely right. I have a date. I have a date with Dante Romano. You have a date with a half-billionaire who tracked you down through multiple phone calls and sheer determination because he couldn't stop thinking about you after 5 minutes in a park, Mia corrected. Girl, this is fairy tale stuff. This is Cinderella meets modern romance meets every romance novel ever written. This is just dinner, Sophie interrupted. It's never just dinner, Mia. It's never just dinner. Mia enunciated each word carefully. Especially not with men like that. Men who track you down. Men who laugh at puppy attacks. Men who notice how you handle a beagle's prey drive. This is fate, Sophie. This is destiny. This is terrifying, Sophie finished. This is absolutely terrifying. The best things usually are. Mia's voice became softer, more serious. But Sophie? You deserve this. You deserve someone who'll chase after you. Someone who sees how amazing you are. Someone who'll work that hard just to take you to dinner. After they talked for another 20 minutes, Mia insisting on helping Sophie plan her outfit, Sophie insisting she didn't need help. Both of them dissolving into giggles like teenagers. Sophie finally hung up and got ready for bed. But sleep didn't come easily. She lay in her tiny apartment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Dante Romano's laugh and his gentle hands and the way he'd said, "You have no idea how much I needed this." She thought about taking chances. about puppies who ran to strangers, about business cards with phone numbers written in decisive masculine handwriting. She thought about Friday night and wondered what she'd gotten herself into. As it turned out, Mia was right about everything. It was never just dinner. It was never just anything with Dante Romano. Friday arrived both too quickly and not quickly enough. Sophie changed outfits 4 times, each iteration making her feel more insecure than the last. The black dress she'd bought for her cousin's wedding 3 years ago? Too formal, tried too hard. The jeans and nice blouse? Too casual, like she didn't care. The blue sundress? Wrong season and also made her look 16. She finally settled on a simple black dress, sleeveless, knee-length, fitted but not tight, paired with her one pair of heels that didn't cause immediate pain. She felt simultaneously overdressed for her life and underdressed for his, which was a special kind of anxiety that sat in her chest like a stone. Mia had come over at 5 p.m. to provide moral support, which mostly meant critiquing Sophie's makeup choices and insisting she wear her hair down instead of in her usual practical ponytail. "You have gorgeous hair, Sophie. Stop hiding it. It gets in the way when I'm working. You're not working tonight. You're going on a date with a man who tracked you down through 40 phone calls. Wear it down." Trust me. So Sophie wore it down, her dark wavy hair falling past her shoulders, and admitted that maybe, just maybe, Mia had a point. At 6:40 p.m., her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Unknown, your car will arrive in 5 minutes. Driver's name is Marcus. Black sedan, license plate JBH4892. Here's a photo of you, professional, from your Instagram to verify identity. If anything feels wrong or unsafe at a NY point, text me immediately. This is Dante." Saving this number under that guy from the park, Sophie laughed despite her nerves, adding him to her contacts. "Sophie, saved, and thank you for the security details. Very thorough. Dante told you. Thorough person. See you very soon, Sophie Martinez." The car arrived exactly at 6:45 p.m., a sleek black sedan that looked exactly like what Sophie imagined very important people drove. The driver, Marcus, was professionally courteous, holding the door for her and calling her Miss Martinez, like she was someone important. "Good evening, Miss Martinez. Mr. Romano has asked me to ensure you're completely comfortable. The drive should take approximately 15 minutes depending on traffic. There's water and snacks available if you'd like, and you can adjust the climate control as needed." Sophie had never been in a car with climate control, let alone a driver. "Thank you, Marcus." "I'm fine." The restaurant was in Tribeca, tucked into a converted warehouse building with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows that somehow managed to feel intimate despite their size. There was no sign outside, no obvious indication this was a restaurant at all, just a discreet brass plaque beside a heavy wooden door that reads simply, "Rosso." Marcus opened her door, offered his hand to help her out, and gestured to the entrance. "Mr. Romano is waiting for you inside." "Have a wonderful evening, Ms. Martinez." The interior took Sophie's breath away. It wasn't large. She counted only 8 tables, all discreetly separated by clever lighting and strategic placement of planters filled with actual rosemary and lavender that scented the air. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers. The lighting was warm, golden, like candlelight, even though she could see the actual candles were battery-powered. And there, at a corner table beside a window overlooking the street, stood Dante Romano. He wore a charcoal suit, perfectly tailored to his frame, but he'd lost the tie and unbuttoned the collar, making him look somehow both polished and relaxed. When he saw her enter, his entire face transformed with genuine happiness, not polite pleasure, not practiced charm, but pure, unguarded joy. "Sophie." He crossed the small space in quick strides, taking both her hands in his. He kissed her knuckles old-fashioned, devastatingly romantic, and looked at her like she was the only person in the world. "You look beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You look—" "Very clean," Sophie said, then wanted to die. "I mean, no puppy paw prints this time. You look great, obviously. You look really great." Dante laughed, warm and genuine. "I was hoping you'd mention the lack of puppy prints. Though honestly, I'd let Max attack me every day if it meant seeing you again." He led her to the table. Holding her chair like this was a 1940s movie. The table was set simply but elegantly white tablecloth, single candle, 2 place settings that probably cost more than Sophie's monthly rent. "This place is incredible," Sophie said, looking around. "How did you find it?" "My friend Luca owns it. We grew up together in Milan. He moved here 5 years ago, opened Rosso, refuses to advertise because he doesn't want to be trendy. Just wants to cook excellent food for people who appreciate it. Dante smiled. He's in the kitchen right now, probably making your meal perfect because I told him this dinner was important. Did you tell him why? I told him I was trying to impress the most interesting woman I'd met in years. Dante's eyes were warm. He said if I messed this up, he'd personally throw me out of his restaurant. I like Luca already. You'll meet him later. He'll insist on coming out to say hello. Fair warning, he'll embarrass me. Looking forward to it. Wine arrived, a red that tasted like summer evenings and made Sophie feel warm from the inside out. Then appetizers. Fresh burrata with heirloom tomatoes that tasted like they'd been picked that morning. Drizzled with olive oil that Dante explained came from his grandmother's olive grove outside Florence. Your family is still in Italy? Sophie asked. Mostly. Some cousins in New York now, but my father still lives in Milan. My mother ... quotes his expression flickered. She passed away when I was 16, cancer. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. Dante rotated his wine glass slowly. But thank you. She would have loved this you, me, this restaurant, this moment. She was always pushing me to find someone who made me laugh. Life is too short to be serious all the time, Dante. She'd say, she sounds wonderful. She was. He smiled, clearly pulling himself back from sadness. But enough about the past. Tell me about you, Sophie Martinez. How does someone become the best dog walker in Manhattan? I'm not the best. You are. I checked. Asked around. Your name came up repeatedly. People use words like reliable, gifted, the only one I trust with my baby. That's not luck. That's skill. Sophie felt herself blushing. I just ... Love dogs. Always have. When I was 7, I found a stray cat in our neighborhood. We lived in Queens and convinced my parents to let me keep her. Then I convinced them to let me foster more cats, then dogs. By the time I was 14, I was walking neighbors' dogs for $5 an hour. And your parents? What did they think of this career choice? Sophie laughed, a little bitter. My father wanted me to be a lawyer. My mother wanted me to take over the family restaurant. Both of them thought walking dogs was a waste of my potential. Do they still think that? I think ... double quotes Sophie considered. I think they see I'm happy, that I built something real. It's not what they wanted, but they're proud in their own way. My mom asks about my dogs like they're her grandchildren. My dad slips me $100 bills and tells me it's just in case, even though I'm doing fine financially. They love you. They do. Even when they don't understand me. Sophie took a sip of wine. What about your father? What does he think of your choices? Dante's expression became more guarded. My father is ... complicated. He had his own business in Milan import-export like me. He wanted me to stay, take over the family company. I wanted to build something mine. So I came to New York at 18 with barely any English, worked whatever jobs I could find, learned the business from the ground up. That must have been hard. It was. But it was mine. Everything I have, I built myself. That matters to me. Maybe too much sometimes. I don't think it's too much. Sophie met his eyes. I understand that completely. The need to prove you can do it yourself. The need to know your success is real, not handed to you. Recognition flickered in Dante's expression. Yes, exactly that. Their appetizer plates were cleared, replaced by pasta handmade pappardelle with a wild burrata that made Sophie close her eyes in pleasure at the first bite. Oh my God, she breathed. This is incredible. Dante watched her with obvious delight. You really love it? Dante, I grew up eating my mother's Puerto Rican cooking, which is amazing, but this is art. Luca will be thrilled to hear that. They ate and talked, and Sophie discovered that conversation with Dante Romano was effortless. He asked questions, real questions, not just polite small talk, and listened to her answers like they mattered. He wanted to know about her work, her training methods, her favorite clients, her worst disasters. There was this Dalmatian, Sophie found herself saying, laughing. Named Houdini. And yes, that was his actual name, which should have been my first warning. His owner hired me saying he needed someone with experience because Houdini could escape anything. Collar, harness, leash didn't matter. 3 times he escaped on walks. 3 times. Dante was grinning. What happened? The 3rd time, I found him at a hot dog cart on 5th Avenue. The vendor was feeding him sausages, completely charmed, while Houdini sat there looking proud of himself. I apologized profusely, paid for 6 hot dogs, and very respectfully told the owner that Houdini needed a professional trainer, not a walker. Some dogs are beyond my skill level. Dante laughed so hard he had to set down his wine glass. You're telling me there's a dog in Manhattan that defeated Sophie Martinez? His name was Houdini. I never stood a chance. I love that you can admit that. Most people would lie, claim they never met a dog they couldn't handle. What's the point of lying? Houdini won. He earned it. Besides, knowing your limitations is important. I can handle most dogs, but escape artist Dalmatians? That's beyond my pay grade. As dinner progressed through amazing pasta, then a secando of perfectly cooked fish, then a simple salad that somehow tasted like the essence of fresh vegetables, Sophie learned things about Dante that the Google searches hadn't revealed. He'd worked brutal hours when he first started his business. Slept in his office for 2 years, survived on coffee and determination and pure stubbornness. His first major deal had been importing Italian marble to renovate a historic building in Boston. He'd personally overseen every aspect, learned about architecture and restoration and quality control in the process. Why work that hard? Sophie asked. Why not just hire people? Delegate? Because no one else cared as much as I did. His expression became intense. If I wanted Romano Enterprises to mean something to stand for quality, integrity, excellence, I had to prove it myself first. You can't ask your employees to care if you don't show them what caring looks like. That's actually really inspiring, or possibly insane. My father certainly thought so. He kept calling, telling me I was being stupid, that I should just come home, take over his business. But you didn't. I didn't. Dante smiled. And now Romano Enterprises is exactly what I wanted it to be. Clean, legitimate, something I'm proud to put my name on. The way he said clean and legitimate made Sophie pause. Like he was distinguishing his business from something else. Something less clean, less legitimate. But before she could ask, Luca arrived, a barrel-chested man with a magnificent beard and a booming laugh, wiping his hands on his apron. So this is the woman who made my friend Dante smile for the first time in 6 months. He grabbed Sophie's hand and kissed it enthusiastically. Beautiful. Dante said beautiful, but he undersold. You are magnifico. Luca, Dante groaned. Please don't what? Don't tell her you called me at midnight 2 nights ago, panicking about which restaurant to choose. Don't mention you asked me to make sure everything was perfect because this dinner was the most important thing in your life. Don't. Luca, Dante's face was red. That's enough. Luca laughed, clapping Dante on the shoulder hard enough to make him wince. He's nervous. My friend Dante Romano, who faces down business rivals without blinking, is nervous because of you. This is wonderful. Sophie couldn't help but laugh. Thank you for the incredible food, Luca. It was absolutely perfect. For you? Anything. Luca became more serious. You make him smile, you make him laugh. This is important. He needs this. He needs you? After Luca returned to the kitchen, probably to prevent Dante from dying of embarrassment, they looked at each other across the table. That was mortifying, Dante said. That was adorable. Sophie smiled. You panicked? Completely. I haven't taken a woman to dinner in. I don't even remember. And I wanted everything perfect. Wanted you to see that I'm not just some guy in an expensive suit who let a puppy attack him. For the record, Sophie said softly, I liked the guy who let the puppy attack him. That's who I said yes to. Not the CEO or the business mogul. Just Dante. His eyes went soft. That's the most incredible thing anyone said to me in a very long time. They shared dessert panna cotta with fresh berries that tasted like summer, and Sophie realized she'd been there for nearly 3 hours without noticing time pass. When was the last time that had happened? When had she ever been so completely absorbed in someone else's presence that the world outside disappeared? When they finally left the restaurant well after midnight, Luca hugging them both and making Dante promise to bring Sophie back soon, the city had quieted to its late-night hum. The streets were still busy, but with a different energy. Cabs cruising for late-night fares, people leaving bars and restaurants, the city's second shift taking over from the first. Marcus was waiting with the car, but Dante waved him off. Give us 20 minutes? Marcus nodded, pulling away to circle the block. Walk with me? Dante asked Sophie. Just for a bit? They walked through Tribeca's cobblestone streets, Sophie's heels clicking softly, her hand somehow finding its way into his. It felt natural, right? Like their fingers had been designed to fit together exactly this way. Tell me something nobody knows, Dante said suddenly. Something real. Sophie thought about deflecting, about keeping it light, then decided to trust the moment, trust him. I'm scared, she admitted. All the time. That I'm not good enough, that one day I'll fail a dog or an owner, that I built this life on luck instead of skill. I lie awake at night wondering when it'll all fall apart. When someone will figure out I'm just making it up as I go. That I don't really know what I'm doing. Dante stopped walking, turned to face her. His expression was serious, intense. Sophie, look at me. She met his eyes. It won't fall apart. You didn't build this on luck. I watched you in that park, the way you moved, the way your dogs responded, the way you handled Max's escape without panicking. That wasn't luck. That was years of dedication and genuine love for what you do. People don't accidentally build what you've built. You don't know that. I know you, Dante said firmly. I know enough. And I know this, you're exactly as good as you think you're not. Better, probably. Sophie felt tears prick her eyes. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Not her parents, not her friends, not anyone. Now it's your turn, she managed. Tell me something nobody knows. Dante was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. When he spoke, his voice was softer, more vulnerable than she'd heard it. I'm lonely, he said simply. Have been for years, maybe my whole adult life. I have money, success, respect, everything I thought I wanted. But I come home to an empty apartment every night and I wonder what the point of any of it is if there's no one to share it with, no one who sees me. Just me, not the business or the money or the reputation. He looked at her and Sophie saw something raw in his expression. And then a puppy attacked me in Central Park and a woman with the most amazing laugh apologized while managing 6 other dogs without breaking a sweat. And I thought, his voice caught slightly. I thought, there she is. The person I've been waiting for without knowing I was waiting. Sophie couldn't breathe. The words were too much, too intense, too honest for someone she'd met less than a week ago. But they also felt true, real, right. Dante, she whispered. I know it's too fast, he said quickly. I know it's crazy, we barely know each other. But Sophie, I haven't felt this sure about anything in years. Decades, maybe. And I don't want to waste time pretending this is just dinner or just a nice evening. This is, Sophie kissed him. She stood on her toes, pulled him down by his lapels, and kissed him before he could finish the sentence. Kissed him because words had become inadequate, because her heart was too full for just talking, because she needed him to know that she felt it too. Dante made a sound of surprise that quickly became something else, relief, joy, desire. His arms came around her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, became more urgent, and Sophie felt dizzy with it, with him, with this impossible perfect moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante pressed his forehead to hers. So, he said, slightly breathless. That was, yeah, Sophie agreed. That was. I want to see you again. Tomorrow. Is tomorrow too soon? Sophie laughed, still dizzy. I work mornings, but evenings are free. Then dinner tomorrow. My place. I'll cook for you. 7 o'clock. He cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek. Unless that's too forward. I can book another restaurant if your place is perfect, Sophie interrupted. But only if you promise not to burn down your kitchen trying to impress me. I'm Italian. We don't burn kitchens. We might burn individual dishes while distracted by beautiful women, but never entire kitchens. Comforting. Marcus appeared at the end of the block, discreetly waiting. Dante walked Sophie to the car, opened the door for her, and before she got in, kissed her one more time softer, sweeter, with a restraint that suggested he was holding back something much more intense. Good night, Sophie Martinez. Good night, Dante Romano. She watched him watch her drive away, his hands in his pockets, a smile on his face that could have lit all of Tribeca. Her phone buzzed immediately. Mia, how was IT? You've been gone 6 hours. Sophie, Mia, I think I'm in trouble. Mia, good trouble or bad trouble? Sophie, I don't know yet. But either way, I'm in so deep I can't see the surface anymore. Mia, that's called falling in love, babe. Welcome to the deep end. Sophie stared at the message for a long moment as Marcus drove through the glowing streets of Manhattan. Falling, yes. That's exactly what it felt like. And for the first time in her life, Sophie wasn't scared of the fall. The next 3 weeks felt like living inside a dream that Sophie kept expecting to end. Saturday evening, Dante cooked for her. Actually cooked, not ordering takeout and pretending, but standing in his penthouse kitchen with an apron tied around his waist, his sleeves rolled up, explaining each step of making risotto from scratch like it was important that she understand the process. The secret is patience, he said, stirring the arborio rice with careful attention. You can't rush risotto. You add the broth slowly, let each addition absorb completely before adding more. If you hurry, you ruin it. Sophie sat on a bar stool at his kitchen island, sipping wine and watching him move with surprising grace. His kitchen was enormous, all stainless steel and marble counters and gadgets Sophie couldn't even name, but Dante made it feel intimate, warm. Is this a metaphor? She asked, smiling. What? The risotto. Patience, not rushing, letting things absorb properly. Is this your way of telling me you're a patient man? Dante glanced at her, his smile devastating. I'm a patient man when it matters, with risotto. With business deals, he added another ladle of broth, stirred carefully. With you, though, I'm discovering patience is much harder. I want to know everything about you immediately. Your favorite book, your worst memory, what you dream about, what makes you laugh at 2 a.m. That's a lot of wanting. I'm a man who knows what he wants. He met her eyes. And I want you, Sophie Martinez. All of you. Every story, every secret, every moment. The risotto was perfect, creamy, rich, exactly the right texture. They ate on his terrace, the Manhattan skyline glittering around them like diamonds on velvet, and talked until midnight about everything and nothing. Sunday afternoon, Sophie brought him to her favorite food truck in Central Park. Dante showed up in dark jeans and a simple sweater, somehow still looking like a magazine cover, and waited in line with her like a regular person. He ordered a hot dog with perfect manners, making even that look elegant somehow, and declared it the best meal he'd had all week. Better than your own risotto? Sophie teased. Different category. Risotto is art. This. He gestured with the hot dog. This is joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. They sat on a bench, eating hot dogs and watching people pass, and Sophie felt something in her chest expand with happiness. Monday evening, Dante took her to a small jazz club in the village, dim lighting. Intimate tables, music that made Sophie's soul ache in the best way. He held her hand through every song, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm that made it hard to focus on anything except his touch. Tuesday morning, he surprised her by showing up at 7:30 a.m. in Central Park, wearing athletic clothes and looking slightly nervous. I thought, he said, maybe I could walk dogs with you? If you don't mind, I won't get in the way, I promise. I just wanted to see your world. Understand what you do. Sophie had never shared her work with anyone before, not romantically, anyway. It felt intimate, vulnerable, like inviting him into the most important part of her life. Okay, she said. But you have to follow my rules. The dogs are my responsibility, my clients. You're just backup. I'm just backup? Dante agreed solemnly. Your rules. Always. She gave him 2 of her easier dogs to handle, Murphy the Corgi and Daisy the Labradoodle, both well-trained and forgiving of mistakes. Dante took their leashes with surprising confidence, and Sophie watched him interact with them, patient, attentive, genuinely affectionate. You're good at this, she said, surprised. I had dogs growing up. My mother loved animals. We had 3 rescues at one point, 2 dogs and a cat that thought she was a dog. His expression became distant, nostalgic. After she died, my father couldn't bear to keep them. Said they reminded him too much of her. I've wanted dogs ever since, but my lifestyle hasn't really allowed it. What changed? He looked at her, his eyes warm. You changed everything. They walked through the park together, Sophie managing her pack with practiced ease. Dante learning her rhythm, her commands, her way of moving through space with 6 dogs orbiting her like planets around the sun. It's like a dance, he said after a while. The way you move with them, anticipate them. You make it look effortless. It's not. It's years of practice and a lot of mistakes, Sophie smiled. But thank you. At one point, Biscuit the Beagle spotted a squirrel and lunged, pulling hard enough to make Sophie stumble. Dante was there immediately, one hand steadying her elbow, the other helping her regain control of Biscuit's leash. "Thanks," she breathed. "Always," he said simply. Wednesday night, he took her to a charity gala, terrifying until Dante squeezed her hand in the car and whispered, "I hate these things." The fake smiles, the performative charity, the people who only want to be seen. "We'll stay for exactly 1 hour, I'll write a check, and then we'll escape to that 24-hour diner I found in Queens and eat pancakes." Deal? They lasted exactly 58 minutes. Sophie met exactly 12 very important people whose names she immediately forgot, smiled through exactly 3 conversations about topics she didn't understand, and felt grateful for every single second that Dante's hand was on the small of her back, anchoring her, protecting her. At minute 59, Dante made their excuses something vague about another commitment, and they escaped through a side exit like teenagers sneaking out of prom. The diner was everything the gala wasn't. Bright fluorescent lights, worn vinyl booths, a menu laminated with years of use, and pancakes that arrived in enormous stacks with real maple syrup. Dante loosened his tie, unbuttoned his collar, and attacked his pancakes with genuine enthusiasm. "This," he said around a mouthful, "is so much better than rubber chicken and champagne I can't pronounce. You're a billionaire eating pancakes at 11 p.m. in Queens," Sophie said, laughing. "Is this what having money looks like? It is when you find the right person to share pancakes with." Thursday, Sophie showed him her apartment for the first time. She'd been self-conscious about it, the size, the age, the secondhand furniture, but Dante walked through her 432 square feet like he was touring a palace. He studied her bookshelf of training manuals with genuine interest, reading titles aloud and asking questions about methodology and technique. He looked at her wall of dog photos, asking about each one, wanting to know their names and stories and what made them special. "This is perfect," he said finally, standing in the middle of her tiny living space. "It's you. Every inch of it." "I love it. Dante, your bathroom is bigger than this entire apartment." "So?" "This has something my penthouse doesn't have." He pulled her close. "Your presence, your energy, your life. That makes it priceless." They made love for the first time that night in Sophie's full-size bed that barely fit 2 people, with street noise filtering through thin windows and her neighbor's TV audible through the wall. It should have been awkward or uncomfortable or somehow wrong. Instead, it was perfect. Dante was gentle, attentive, focused entirely on her pleasure in a way that made Sophie feel cherished, worshipped, seen. When he whispered, "You're beautiful," against her skin, she believed him. When he said, "I love you" in Italian, "Ti amo, Sophie," she understood even before he translated. "I love you too," she whispered back and felt him smile against her throat. They fell asleep tangled together, and Sophie woke at 3 a.m. to find him awake, watching her with an expression so tender it hurt. "What?" she asked sleepily. "I'm memorizing this," he said softly. "You, here, this moment. I never want to forget how this feels. What does it feel like?" "Like home. Like finally finding the place I'm supposed to be." Friday morning, Sophie woke to find Dante already up, making coffee in her tiny kitchen. He'd somehow produced fresh pastries from where she had no idea and set up her small table like it was a cafe. "Good morning, amor," he said, kissing her forehead. "I let you sleep. You needed it." They ate breakfast together while Sophie told him about her schedule for the day, and Dante listened like her afternoon appointment with the neurotic schnauzer was the most fascinating thing he'd ever heard. "Come stay with me this weekend," he said suddenly. "Bring your things. Spend Saturday and Sunday at my place. Please, Dante. I know it's fast. I know we're moving quickly. But Sophie, I don't want to waste time pretending this is casual or temporary. This is real. This matters. And I want to wake up next to you tomorrow morning and make you coffee and talk about your difficult schnauzer client." Sophie looked at him, at this powerful, wealthy, successful man who was asking her to spend the weekend with him like it was the most important question in the world, and felt certainty settle in her bones. "Okay," she said. "Yes, I'll stay this weekend." His smile could have powered the entire city. But it wasn't all perfect, wasn't all easy. Sophie noticed things that made her stomach knot with anxiety, made her wonder exactly what she'd gotten herself into. The phone calls that made Dante's expression shutter closed, become the dangerous man she glimpsed occasionally, cold, calculating, absolutely certain. The way he'd step into another room to take certain calls, his voice dropping to Italian so fast and harsh she couldn't even catch individual words. The men in suits who were always nearby when they were in public. Not intrusive, not obvious, but there, watching, protecting, Marco, who'd accompanied her that first day with Max, had become a familiar presence, professional, courteous, always exactly the right distance away. The security codes on every door in Dante's apartment, the cameras in every corner. The safe in his office that required both a key and a fingerprint to open. One night at his apartment, Sophie finally asked. They were having dinner. Dante had cooked again, this time a simple pasta with garlic and olive oil that somehow tasted like summer in Italy when his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his entire body language changed. The warmth drained from his expression, replaced by something harder, colder. "Excuse me," he said, standing. "I need to take this." He walked to his office, closed the door. Sophie could hear his voice through the wall, not the words, but the tone. Hard, uncompromising. Threatening, maybe. When he returned 15 minutes later, he looked exhausted. "I'm sorry," he said, sitting back down. "Business, it couldn't wait." "Dante," Sophie set down her fork. "What exactly do you import and export?" The question hung in the air between them. Dante stopped mid-motion, his wine glass halfway to his lips. His expression became carefully neutral the first time she'd seen him guard himself with her since that first night. "Why do you ask?" "Because I'm not blind." Sophie's voice was steady, even though her heart was racing. "Because men in suits follow you everywhere. Because you have security codes on every door and cameras in every corner and conversations in Italian that sound dangerous. Because sometimes you get phone calls that make you look like someone I don't recognize." Dante set down his wine glass carefully, precisely. "And if I told you that some of my business isn't entirely conventional, what would you say?" Sophie's stomach dropped, but she kept her voice level. "I'd ask if you hurt people." "Innocent people? No." His answer was immediate, fierce, leaving no room for doubt. "Never, not ever. I have rules, Sophie. Lines I don't cross, boundaries I won't violate. Innocent people, children, anything that harms rather than helps, that's not who I am. That's not who I'll ever be." "But you're not just a businessman importing luxury goods and fine art." "No." He met her eyes. "I'm not. My family, we have interest, connections, some legitimate, some less so. I've worked very hard to make Romana Enterprises clean, legal, above reproach. But the past doesn't disappear just because you want it to. And some business, some necessary business requires getting your hands dirty." Sophie absorbed this. She should have been scared. Should have stood up, walked out, called an Uber, and never looked back. She wasn't, she didn't. "Thank you for being honest," she said quietly. "Sophie," Dante reached across the table, took her hands. "I need you to understand something. What I do, what my family did, it's not simple. It's not black and white. There are people in this city who would hurt others without thinking, who see power as a license to destroy. What I do, what my organization does, is create order, protection. We have rules, ethics. We don't prey on the weak. We protect neighborhoods that the police have forgotten. We provide services that people need but can't get through legitimate channels." That sounds like rationalization. Maybe it is. He gripped her hands tighter. "But I promise you this, Sophie, I have never harmed an innocent person. I have never profited from suffering. Everything I do, every decision I make, I can justify morally even if I can't justify legally. Does that make sense?" Sophie thought about her neighborhood growing up in Washington Heights. The times the police didn't come when called. The businesses that were protected not by law enforcement but by local organizations that charged for the service but also actually delivered it. The gray areas between legal and illegal, right and wrong, protection and extortion. "I'm not naive, Dante. I grew up in Washington Heights, not the Upper East Side. I know the world isn't all puppies and sunshine. I know there are situations where the law doesn't help, where people need protection from other people, where sometimes the lines get blurry." She squeezed his hands back. "I just needed to know that you're not someone who would hurt people for no reason. That you have principles, ethics, that the man I'm falling in love with is fundamentally good, even if the world you operate in isn't simple." "I'm not simple," Dante said quietly. "I'm not perfect. I've done things I'm not proud of, made decisions that keep me awake at night, but I try, Sophie. Every day I try to be better than I was yesterday. Try to use my power to protect rather than destroy. Try to make my mother proud wherever she is. He stood, pulled Sophie up, wrapped her in his arms. With you, I just want to be Dante. The man who laughs at puppy attacks and burns Rosada when distracted and counts the minutes until he can see you again. Not Romano Enterprises, not the family legacy, not the complicated past. Just me, can I be that with you? Sophie pulled back to look at his face, saw the vulnerability there, the fear that she'd reject him, leave him, decide he was too complicated, too dangerous, too much. Yes, she said simply. You can be just Dante with me, always. He kissed her then, deep and desperate and grateful. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante pressed his forehead to hers. I love you, Sophie Martinez. So much it scares me. I love you too, Dante Romano, all of you. Even the complicated parts. They made love that night with new urgency, new understanding, new depth. Sophie traced the scar on his shoulder. Knife fight, he admitted quietly, when I was 22, breaking up a fight that would have killed someone, and kissed it gently. You're a good man, she whispered. I'm trying to be. For you, I'll try harder. Afterward, wrapped in his arms in his enormous bed overlooking Manhattan, Sophie felt certainty settle in her chest. This was right. He was right. Yes, it was complicated. Yes, there would be challenges. Yes, she was stepping into a world she didn't fully understand, but love wasn't simple. Love was choosing someone despite their complications, because of their complications, with full knowledge of who they were and what they brought to the relationship. And Sophie chose Dante Romano, all of him. Sophie, Dante murmured, half asleep. Thank you. For what? For not running, for staying. For loving me anyway. Always, she promised, and meant it with her whole heart. The next morning, Sophie woke to find Dante already awake, watching her with an expression so tender it made her breath catch. What? She asked, smiling sleepily. Marry me, he said. Sophie's brain stuttered to a stop. What? Dante sat up, suddenly very awake, very serious. Marry me, Sophie, I know it's insane. I know we've only known each other 3 weeks. But I don't want to waste time pretending this isn't permanent. I know it in my bones, in my soul. You're it for me, the only one I want. The only one I'll ever want. Dante, that's too fast, I know. Too much, I know. But, Sophie, he cupped her face gently. I've spent 34 years waiting without knowing I was waiting. Building success that felt empty. Achieving goals that didn't matter. And then a puppy attacked me in Central Park, and you ran after him with 6 other dogs following you like you were their queen. And everything made sense for the first time in my life. His eyes were intense, certain, filled with love that took her breath away. I want you in my life forever, legally, publicly, permanently. I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. I want to walk dogs with you on Tuesdays and cook dinner for you on Fridays and hold you when you're scared and celebrate with you when you succeed. I want everything, Sophie. All of it, with you. Only you. He kissed her gently, then pulled back to meet her eyes. Marry me, please. I'll buy you a ring today, the biggest diamond you've ever seen, or a simple band, or whatever you want. I don't care. Or we can go to City Hall tomorrow and do it with no ceremony at all. I don't care about any of that. I just care about you being my wife, my partner, my family. Say yes, Sophie Martinez? Please say yes. Sophie should have said it was too soon. Should have asked for time to think, time to process, time to be rational and careful and smart. Instead, she heard herself say, yes. Yes? Yes, you absolutely insane man. Yes, I'll marry you. Dante's smile could have lit the entire borough. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply, laughing with pure joy against her lips. You're sure? You're not just saying yes because I ambushed you right after you woke up? I'm sure. Sophie laughed, dizzy with happiness and terror and absolute certainty. This is crazy. This is moving too fast. This is probably a terrible idea, but I'm sure. I love you. I want this. I want you forever. Forever, Dante repeated like it was a sacred vow. I promise you forever, amor. They spent the rest of Saturday in bed, making love and making plans and making promises. Sunday, Dante insisted they go ring shopping. I want you to have something official. Something real, and Sophie chose a simple platinum band with a small but perfect diamond because anything larger felt ostentatious and wrong. "It's beautiful," Dante said, sliding it onto her finger. "Like you, perfect in its simplicity." Monday morning, Sophie went back to work with a ring on her finger and a smile on her face that Mia spotted immediately. "What is that?" Mia grabbed Sophie's hand, staring at the ring. "Sophie Martinez, is that what I think it is?" "We're engaged," Sophie said, still not quite believing it herself. Mia screamed so loudly that 3 nearby dogs started barking. "You're engaged? After 3 weeks?" 23 days, technically. 23 days. Mia was practically hyperventilating. Oh my God, this is insane. This is the most romantic thing I've ever heard. I'm so happy for you I could cry. I'm crying, look, I'm crying. She was indeed crying. Sophie hugged her, laughing and crying herself now. "It's crazy, right?" "It's absolutely crazy. It's perfect," Mia said firmly. "When you know, and clearly you both know. When's the wedding?" "We're thinking City Hall, next week, maybe." "We don't want to wait." "Next week?" Mia looked simultaneously thrilled and horrified. "Sophie, you can't just, you need a dress and flowers. And pictures." "And we just want it to be us," Sophie interrupted gently. "Simple, private, real. You can be my witness if you want. But we're not doing a big production." "That's not us." Mia studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, yes. I'll be your witness. And I'll make sure you have at least one nice photo to remember it by. But Sophie? Yeah? You're happy, right? Really, truly happy? Not scared or pressured or worried you're making a mistake. Sophie thought about Dante's laugh when Max attacked him. About his patience making risotto. About the way he made her tiny apartment feel like home just by being in it. About how he'd admitted his complicated past and trusted her not to run. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "But I'm also happier than I've ever been in my entire life. So I guess I'm both? Is that allowed?" "That's called being in love," Mia said, smiling through her tears. "Welcome to the club, babe." It's terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. That night, Sophie and Dante celebrated their engagement quietly at his apartment. Just them, a simple dinner, and a future stretching ahead like an endless horizon of possibility. "Thank you," Dante said, pulling her close on his couch, "for saying yes. For taking this crazy chance with me. For not running away when you discovered I'm complicated and messy and sometimes dangerous. Thank you," Sophie countered, "for tracking me down through 40 phone calls. For letting Max attack you. For seeing me when I thought I was invisible. For loving me exactly as I am. Always amor. Always and forever. They were wrong about one thing, though. It wasn't going to be as simple as City Hall next week. Because the next morning, everything changed. The first crack in their perfect bubble appeared on Tuesday morning. Sophie was walking her morning pack 6 dogs plus Max, who Mrs. Henderson had asked her to keep walking 3 days a week when she noticed the car, black sedan. Tinted windows so dark they were almost certainly illegal. Following her at a careful distance, always keeping her in sight but never getting close enough to be obvious. At first, she told herself she was paranoid. Dante's world was making her see threats that weren't there. It was just a random car that happened to be going in the same direction. Then it followed her for the entire 2-hour walk, maintaining that exact same distance, turning when she turned, stopping when she stopped. By the time Sophie finished her route and dropped off her last dog, her hands were shaking. She called Dante immediately. "Amor, good morning. There's a car following me," Sophie interrupted, her voice tight. "Black sedan, tinted windows." "It's been following me for 3 days, Dante. I thought I was imagining it at first, but I'm not. It's definitely following me." The silence on the other end was terrible. Then, in a voice so cold and controlled it sent chills down Sophie's spine. "Where are you now?" "West 78th and Columbus, about to head to the subway. Don't move. Don't go underground. Stay on the street, stay in public. I'm sending Marco. He'll be there in 90 seconds. Dante's voice was clipped, professional, terrifying in its certainty. "Sophie, listen to me very carefully. This is important. Do exactly what Marco tells you to do. Don't argue, don't question, trust him. Can you do that?" Sophie's heart was racing. "Dante, what's going on? I'll explain everything." But right now, I need you safe. Please, Amor. Trust me. I trust you. Marco will keep you safe until I can get to you. I'm leaving now. 20 minutes, maybe less. Marco appeared in exactly 90 seconds. Sophie timed it on her phone, watching the seconds tick by while her pulse pounded in her ears. He approached calmly, professionally, giving no indication anything was wrong to anyone watching. Ms. Martinez, he said quietly, his voice low enough that only she could hear. I'm going to escort you home. We'll take a car that's pulling up now. Mr. Romano is on his way to meet us there. Act naturally, like we planned this, like nothing is wrong. A different black sedan pulled up to the curb, this one with clear windows. A woman driving, completely non-threatening in appearance. Marco opened the back door, helped Sophie in with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this hundreds of times. As they drove away, Sophie caught a glimpse of the car that had been following her. It didn't pursue, just sat there watching. At her apartment building, Marco swept her inside quickly, efficiently. By the time they reached her floor, Dante was already there. How? Sophie had no idea, pacing her tiny hallway like a caged animal. Sophie, he pulled her into his arms so tightly she could barely breathe. She felt him trembling with rage or fear or both. Are you okay? Did they approach you? Touch you? Say anything? No, they just followed, from a distance. For 3 days, Sophie pulled back to look at his face. Dante, who are they? Dante exchanged a look with Marco, some wordless communication passing between them. Then Marco nodded once and stepped back, positioning himself at the door, not leaving but giving them space. Dante led Sophie inside her apartment, sat her down on her bed, knelt in front of her so they were eye level. His name is Roberto Vitali. Old business. Old grudge from when I first started Romano Enterprises. He's been quiet for years, but apparently double quotes. Dante's jaw clenched. Apparently he's found out about you. Found out what about me? That you matter to me. Dante took her hands, his grip almost painful. That hurting you would hurt me more than anything else he could possibly do. So he's sending a message. Letting me know he knows about you, that he can reach you whenever he wants, that you're vulnerable. Sophie's blood ran cold. He wants to hurt me because of you. He wants to scare you. Make you leave me. Prove that anyone close to me becomes a target, that I can't protect the people I love. Dante's voice was rough with barely controlled rage. It won't work. I won't let him touch you. I won't let him win. Dante, Sophie tried to pull her hands back, but he held on. Maybe if I step back, if I'm not with you for a while, he'll... No. The word came out harsh, absolute. Don't finish that sentence. Don't even think about leaving because of this. That's exactly what he wants. But if I'm putting you in danger, Sophie... Dante cupped her face, forced her to meet his eyes. You're not putting me in danger. You're giving me a reason to finally end this thing with Vitali, but I should have ended years ago. To clean up the last piece of my past that I've been avoiding because it was easier to ignore him than confront him. What are you going to do? What I should have done a long time ago. Make sure Vitali understands that you and anything or anyone you care about is completely, permanently untouchable. That threatening you was the biggest mistake of his life. Sophie saw something in Dante's eyes, then something cold and dangerous and absolutely certain. This was the other side of the man she loved. The side that made difficult decisions, that operated in gray areas, but used power and influence to protect what was his. Will you double quotes? Sophie struggled with how to ask. Will you be safe? Dante's expression softened slightly. Yes, Amor, I'll be safe. This isn't my first time dealing with men like Vitali. I know how to handle this. How? Let me worry about that. Your job is to trust me. To let me protect you. He kissed her forehead gently. Can you do that? Sophie wanted to say no. Wanted to insist she could take care of herself, that she didn't need protection, that she was strong and independent and capable. But she'd seen that car. Felt the fear of being watched, followed, targeted. She wasn't naive enough to think she could handle this alone. What do I need to do? She asked instead. Dante's relief was palpable. Marco will accompany you on walks for the next few days. Don't argue, he's discreet, professional, and he genuinely loves dogs. You won't even notice he's there after the first day. Sophie almost laughed at that. I'll definitely notice a 6-foot-tall man in a suit following me around Central Park. He'll dress appropriately. Athletic clothes, casual jacket. He'll look like any other jogger. But he'll be there, keeping you safe. Dante stood, pulled her up with him. I also want you to vary your routes. Don't be predictable. And when you're not working, I want you here in your apartment or at my place, nowhere in between. Dante, I can't just stop living my life. You're not stopping, you're being careful. There's a difference. His voice became softer, almost pleading. Please, Sophie, for me. Just until I fix this. Sophie looked at him, at the fear behind his eyes. The determination, the love that made him willing to do whatever it took to keep her safe, and nodded. Okay, I'll be careful. I'll let Marco tag along. I'll vary my routes. She touched his cheek gently. But you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise you'll be safe too. That you won't do anything reckless or dangerous. That you'll come back to me. I promise. He kissed her palm. I have too much to live for now. A wedding to plan, a life to build with you. I'm not taking stupid risks on more. I'm being smart about this. Over the next week, Sophie's life transformed in subtle but undeniable ways that made her both grateful and slightly claustrophobic. Marco did indeed accompany her walks, and true to Dante's word, he was discreet and professional. He wore joggers and a lightweight jacket, carried water bottles, looked like any other fitness enthusiast enjoying the park. The dogs loved him. He had a natural ease with animals that surprised Sophie. You're really good with them, she said on the third day, watching him calm a nervous poodle who'd gotten spooked by a bicycle. Marco smiled slightly, the first real expression she'd seen from him beyond professional neutrality. I had dogs growing up, German shepherds. Miss them sometimes. Why don't you have them now? My work makes it difficult. Irregular hours, travel, the need to respond quickly to situations. Wouldn't be fair to the dog. Maybe when you retire, maybe? He glanced at her. Mr. Romano is lucky to have you, Miss Martinez. I've worked for him for 6 years. Never seen him this happy, this human. Sophie felt warmth spread through her chest. I'm lucky too. Even if his world is more complicated than I expected. Complicated, yes. But good. He's a good man, Miss Martinez. Does what he does for the right reasons. That's rare in our world. Other changes were less subtle. A different car picked her up whenever she went to Dante's apartment, and she was going there more now. Dante insisting she stay over most nights. Her apartment building suddenly had a new security guard who nodded politely but watched everyone who entered. Dante gave her a phone to carry. Just for emergencies. It has a panic button that goes directly to Marco, that Sophie kept in her jacket pocket at all times. She should have felt confined, controlled, like her independence was being slowly eroded. Instead, she felt protected, cherished, like she mattered enough to warrant all this effort and planning. Still, the waiting was hard. Dante was gone more than usual, taking meetings she knew were about Vitali, making phone calls in Italian that she tried not to eavesdrop on. He came home some nights looking exhausted, drained, but he always held her tight and whispered, "Soon. This ends soon." Then came the night everything changed. Sophie was having dinner at Dante's apartment. He'd ordered takeout because he'd been too tired to cook when his phone rang. She watched his expression shift from tired to alert to something sharp and dangerous. He spoke in rapid Italian, his voice hard and controlled, and Sophie understood enough to catch tonight and warehouse and something that sounded like an address. When he hung up, he looked at Sophie for a long moment. Vitali made a move, he said finally. Tried to grab one of my drivers, got caught. Also sent men to vandalize one of the shelters I've been funding. The dog shelter? Sophie felt cold rage wash over her. He threatened dogs? He wanted to get to you through something you care about. Thought threatening the shelter would hurt you, which would hurt me. Dante's smile was grim, dangerous. He made a mistake. A terminal one. What are you going to do? What I should have done years ago. End this permanently. Make sure Vitali understands that you and anything you care about is completely untouchable. That crossing you is one thing, but threatening you? His expression became absolutely certain. That's unforgivable. Sophie stood, crossed to him. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Dante. She took his hands, held them firmly. If this is about me, if you threaten dogs because of me, I should be there. I'm not hiding in your apartment while you deal with my consequences. These aren't your consequences, Sophie. They're mine. My past, my enemies, my responsibility. Then they're ours. She squeezed his hands. We're engaged. We're going to be married. That means your problems are my problems. Your past is my past. I love you, Dante, all of you, including the complicated, dangerous parts. You don't get to protect me from reality anymore. Not about this. Dante stared at her for a long moment, his expression cycling through disbelief, exasperation, fear, and finally pride. You're extraordinary, he said softly. And also possibly insane. I prefer committed to my future husband. Sophie, I'm not asking to confront the tally directly or do anything dangerous, but I can wait nearby, at your office or wherever is safe. Marco can stay with me. You handle the confrontation, then come back. I'll be there when it's over. Deal? Dante was quiet, clearly warring with himself. Then he pulled her close, buried his face in her hair, and said something in Italian that sounded like a prayer. Fine, he said finally. You can wait at my office. Marco stays with you. You don't leave that room for any reason. If something goes wrong, if you even sense something isn't right, you use that emergency phone and you run. Agreed? Agreed. 2 hours later, Sophie sat in Dante's office, all dark wood and leather and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, while Marco stood by the door, alert and watchful. Dante had been gone for 90 minutes. Sophie tried not to imagine what handling the conversation with Vitaly meant. Tried not to think about violence or danger or the gray areas between justice and revenge. Instead, she focused on the view. On the city glittering below them like a carpet of stars. On the future she and Dante were building together, messy and complicated and absolutely worth fighting for. When the door finally opened, Dante walked in looking exhausted but satisfied. No blood, no visible injuries, just bone-deep weariness and the weight of decisions made. It's over, he said simply, crossing to where Sophie sat. He knelt in front of her, took her hands. Vitaly has been convinced. To leave New York permanently, immediately, tonight. He won't bother you, me, or any shelter anywhere ever again. How convinced? Dante's smile was sharp, dangerous, satisfied. Very. Let's just say he now fully understands the difference between acceptable business rivalry and unforgivable personal attacks. He's chosen to retire from all business interests and move to Sicily immediately. I hear the weather is lovely this time of year. Sophie knew she shouldn't ask for more details. Didn't want to know exactly what convinced meant or what had happened in that warehouse. Instead, she stood, wrapped her arms around his waist, and held on tight. Thank you, she whispered. For protecting me, for protecting the dogs. For making me feel safe. For everything. Always, Amor. Always. Dante's arms came around her, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the universe. I would do anything to keep you safe. Anything. There is no limit to what I would do for you. I know. I feel the same way. They stood there in the darkness of his office, the city glittering below them, holding each other like anchors in a storm. Sophie, Dante murmured against her hair. If this is too much, the danger, the complications, the reality of what my life sometimes requires, I'll understand if you want to. Stop. Sophie pulled back to look at him. Her expression fierce. I'm not going anywhere. Yes, this is scary. Yes, it's more than I expected. Yes. Your world is complicated and sometimes dangerous and definitely different from what I'm used to. She cupped his face in her hands. But you're also more than I expected. You're kind and protective and you laugh at puppy attacks and you make risotto from scratch and you funded dog shelters without telling anyone because it was the right thing to do. This stash is worth every complication, worth every fear, worth every risk. You're sure? Completely sure? Completely. Sophie kissed him softly. Besides, you already proposed, already gave me a ring, already made me fall impossibly in love with you. Too late to back out now, Romano. Marry me, he said suddenly, urgently. Tomorrow, City Hall. I don't want to wait anymore, Sophie. I want you legally, permanently, publicly mine. I want the world to know that threatening me means war. I want... Yes, Sophie interrupted. Yes, tomorrow. Yes, City Hall. Yes, all of it. Yes, 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 you crazy, protective, wonderful man. Let's get married tomorrow. Dante's smile could have powered the entire city. He kissed her deeply, desperately, gratefully, and Sophie kissed him back with everything she had. I love you, Sophie Martinez, he whispered against her lips. More than I knew it was possible to love someone. I love you too, Dante Romano. Forever, no matter what. Forever, he agreed. Starting tomorrow. They called Mia from the office. It was nearly midnight, but Mia answered on the second ring. Sophie, is everything okay? We're getting married tomorrow. City Hall, 2 p.m. Can you be there? Silence. Then, what? Tomorrow? Sophie, you can't just... We can and we are. Will you be there? Please? More silence. Then, softer. Of course I'll be there. Of course. Oh my God, Sophie, you're really doing this. I really am. Are you happy? Tell me you're happy. Sophie looked at Dante, who was watching her with an expression of such love it made her chest ache. I'm terrified and overwhelmed and diving into something I don't fully understand, she said honestly. But yes, Mia, I'm happy. Incredibly, impossibly happy. Then that's all that matters. Mia's voice was thick with emotion. I'll be there tomorrow, and Sophie? Yeah? He better treat you like a queen or I'll kill him myself. Dante, who'd apparently heard this through the phone, called out, I promise to treat her like the empress she is. Mia laughed through what sounded like tears. Good answer. See you tomorrow, future Mrs. Romano. After they hung up, Dante pulled Sophie into his lap, wrapping his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Ready for tomorrow? He asked softly. Ready for everything, Sophie answered. As long as it's with you. Forever with you, Dante promised. Starting tomorrow and every day after. Sophie leaned back against him, watching the city lights, thinking about how a puppy running across a meadow had led to this, to love, to danger, to choices that changed everything, to a future that was complicated and messy and absolutely perfect. Tomorrow she would marry Dante Romano. Tomorrow her life would change forever. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. Wednesday morning dawned clear and crisp, the kind of October day that made New York feel like the center of the universe. Sophie woke in Dante's arms in his enormous bed, with sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the city spread out below them like a promise. Good morning, future Mrs. Romano, Dante murmured against her hair. Sophie smiled, still half asleep. Good morning, future Mr. Martinez Romano. Martinez Romano? He propped himself up on one elbow to look at her. You want to hyphenate? Maybe, I haven't decided yet. Sophie turned to face him. Is that okay? If I keep my name or hyphenate instead of just taking yours? Sophie, Dante cupped her face gently. You can keep your name entirely if you want. You can change it to something completely different. You can make me take your name. I don't care. As long as I get to call you my wife, you can call yourself whatever makes you happy. You take my name? If that's what you wanted. He was completely serious. I mean, Dante Martinez has a nice ring to it. Very telenovela hero. Sophie laughed, pulling him down for a kiss. I love you. Have I mentioned that recently? Not in the last 8 hours. I was starting to wonder. They made love slowly, sweetly, with the knowledge that by tonight they'd be married, making every touch feel sacred, significant. Afterward, they lay tangled together, neither wanting to move to start the day. To acknowledge that they had a wedding to get to. We should get up, Sophie said without moving. Probably, Dante agreed, also not moving. Mia's going to kill me if I show up late to my own wedding. Marco will kill me if I'm late to mine. Neither moved for another 10 minutes. Finally, reluctantly, they got up. Dante made coffee while Sophie showered, and they had breakfast on his terrace with the autumn sun warming their faces. Nervous? Dante asked, watching her over his coffee cup. Terrified, Sophie admitted, but not about marrying you. More about ... everything changing. My life being completely different by tonight. It doesn't have to be completely different. You'll still walk dogs, still live your life. Still be Sophie Martinez, who loves animals more than most people. Sophie Martinez Romano, who loves animals more than most people. You decided? I think so, Sophie smiled. I built my business as Martinez. My clients know me as Martinez. But I want people to know I'm yours too. So ... both. Is that greedy? It's perfect. Like you. At 11 a.m., Mia arrived at the penthouse with a garment bag and a determined expression. Okay, she announced, marching past Marco, who'd answered the door. Sophie, you're coming with me. Dante, you stay here. You don't get to see her until City Hall. It's tradition. We're getting married at City Hall in jeans, Sophie protested. I don't think tradition applies. You are not getting married in jeans. Mia held up the garment bag triumphantly. I stopped at Bloomingdale's this morning. I know your size. You're trying on dresses. Now. Mia, non-negotiable. You get one wedding, Sophie. One. You're wearing an actual dress. Go change now. Sophie looked at Dante helplessly. He was grinning, clearly enjoying this. I'll see you at City Hall, Amore, he said, kissing her forehead. Let Mia work her magic. 30 minutes later, Sophie stood in front of Dante's full-length mirror wearing a simple white dress that somehow made her feel like a bride. It wasn't a traditional wedding gown, knee-length, sleeveless, fitted but not tight, with delicate lace details at the shoulders. Elegant, understated, perfect. Mia, Sophie breathed. How did you— Because I know you, Mia said, tears already forming. You needed something that feels like you but special enough for the occasion. And look, she produced a small bouquet of wildflowers. Picked these up from a vendor on my way here, nothing fancy but they're you. Sophie was crying now too. I don't deserve you as a friend. You really don't. I'm amazing. Mia hugged her carefully, trying not to crush the flowers or the dress. Are you ready for this? Really ready? Yes. Absolutely yes. Then let's go get you married. City Hall at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday was surprisingly crowded. Other couples getting married, families there for various bureaucratic reasons. Lawyers and officials moving through the marble halls with practiced efficiency. Sophie and Mia arrived first, standing on the steps outside, Sophie holding her wildflower bouquet and trying not to think too hard about what she was about to do. You look beautiful, Mia said for the 5th time. Like, really beautiful. Dante's going to lose his mind when he sees you. It's just a dress. It's not about the dress. It's about you in the dress, looking happy and glowing and absolutely certain this is right. That's what he's going to see. At 1:55 p.m., a car pulled up the now familiar black sedan and Dante stepped out. He wore a dark navy suit perfectly tailored with a white shirt and no tie. Simple, elegant, devastating. When he saw Sophie on the steps, he stopped mid-stride, his expression transforming into something that made her breath catch. He crossed to her in quick strides, took both her hands, just stared at her for a long moment. Sophie, he finally managed. I don't have words. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It's just a dress Mia picked out this morning. It's not the dress. He echoed Mia's words without knowing it. It's you. Always you. Marco appeared behind Dante, wearing a suit that made him look somehow even more imposing. We should go inside. Your appointment is at 2. The ceremony itself was simple, efficient, almost anticlimactic given the enormity of what it represented. They stood before a city official, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor, with Mia and Marco as witnesses. The official asked the standard questions, confirmed they were there of their own free will, understood the commitment they were making. Then came the vows. Dante Cesar Romano, do you take Sophie Maria Martinez to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? I do. Dante's voice was steady, certain, his eyes never leaving Sophie's face. Sophie Maria Martinez, do you take Dante Cesar Romano to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? Sophie felt the weight of the moment, the magnitude of what she was choosing. A month ago, she'd been alone, building her business, walking dogs, living her simple life. Now she was marrying a man she'd known for less than 4 weeks, stepping into a world of complexity and danger and love so intense it terrified her. I do, she said, and meant it with every cell of her body. By the power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The official smiled warmly. You may kiss your bride. Dante cupped Sophie's face in both hands, his touch gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. Thank you, he whispered. For running into my life, for staying. For choosing me, always, Sophie whispered back. The kiss was soft, sweet, promising decades of more kisses to come. When they broke apart, Mia was crying openly, and even Marco looked suspiciously misty-eyed. Ladies and gentlemen, the official announced, I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Romano. Martinez Romano, Sophie corrected automatically. The official smiled. My apologies, Mr. Romano and Mrs. Martinez Romano. They signed the license, making it official, legal, permanent, and Mia took approximately 500 photos on her phone despite Sophie's protests. You'll thank me later when you want to remember this, Mia insisted, snapping another shot of Dante kissing Sophie's hand. Outside City Hall, on the steps where Sophie had waited nervously 30 minutes ago, they stood as husband and wife. The autumn sun warming their faces, the city flowing around them like water around stones. So, Dante said, his arm around Sophie's waist. What does one do after getting married at City Hall on a Wednesday afternoon? Usually get lunch, I guess? Wrong. Dante's smile was mysterious. I have one more surprise. Will you trust me? Always. He led her to the car Marco driving, Mia following in a cab she'd insisted on taking to give you newlyweds space, and they drove through Manhattan with Dante refusing to tell her where they were going. 20 minutes later, they pulled up in front of a beautiful brownstone in Park Slope, Brooklyn. What is this? Sophie asked as Dante helped her out of the car. Ours, if you want it. He led her to the front door, unlocked it with a key he pulled from his pocket. I know your apartment is too small for both of us. I know my penthouse feels too sterile, too much like an office. So ... I bought this. For us. To make our own. Sophie stepped inside and felt her breath catch. The brownstone was gorgeous, 4 stories of original details and modern updates. Hardwood floors and exposed brick filled with warm afternoon light. But it was the layout that made her heart ache. The ground floor had clearly been designed with her business in mind. A large room perfect for an office, built-in shelving for supplies, a mudroom with multiple hooks for leashes. Dante, she breathed. This is your headquarters if you want. Room for your business downstairs, our life upstairs. Separate but connected. I thought, he looked suddenly uncertain. I thought you could keep building your business without it taking over our living space. But if you don't like it, we can find something else. Or, Sophie kissed him, cutting off his worried rambling. It's perfect. Show me the rest. He led her through the brownstone, room by room. A chef's kitchen that made his penthouse kitchen look small. A living room with a fireplace and built-in bookshelves. 3 bedrooms upstairs, one for us, one for guests, one for future possibilities, Dante said, blushing slightly. But it was the backyard that made Sophie gasp. Enclosed, spacious, beautifully landscaped, and perfect for dogs. Plenty of room for your pack when you bring them home after walks, Dante explained. And for Max, who's officially ours now. I bought him from Mrs. Henderson this morning, wedding present. He's upstairs waiting. Sophie turned to stare at him. You bought Max? He brought us together. Seemed only right he should be part of our family. Dante's expression became vulnerable. If you want him, if it's not too much. I know you already have dogs you care for professionally, but I thought, I want him, Sophie interrupted, tears streaming down her face. I want all of this, the house, the dog, the life we're building. I want everything with you. Then it's yours. All of it. Happy wedding day, Mrs. Martinez Romano. They explored the brownstone together, room by room, imagining their future. Guest rooms that would someday become nurseries. The office that would house Sophie's growing business. A library for Dante's collection of books he'd been accumulating for years. And upstairs, in the master bedroom, Max waited bigger now than that morning in the park, but still clumsy, still exuberant, wearing the leather collar Dante had made with Max engraved on a silver plate. The puppy launched himself at them with characteristic joy, covering them both in kisses and love and golden retriever enthusiasm. Welcome home, Dante murmured, one arm around Sophie, the other scratching Max's ears. Sophie looked at her husband, and their dog and their brownstone and their future spreading out like an endless horizon of possibility. Yeah, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Welcome home. They ordered dinner from the same Tribeca restaurant where they'd had their first date. Luca delivered it personally, hugging them both and crying openly about how happy he was for his friend Dante. You did good. Fratello, Luca said, clapping Dante on the back. She's perfect for you. Don't screw this up. I won't, Dante promised. I'd sooner cut off my own hand. Good answer. Mia joined them for dinner. I'm not letting you spend your wedding night alone with just each other and a puppy, and they ate and drank wine and told stories until after midnight. I should go, Mia said finally, standing reluctantly. Let you two start your married life properly. But Sophie? Yeah? I'm really happy for you. Mia hugged her tightly. You deserve this. All of it. The love, the happiness. The man who tracked you down through 40 phone calls because he couldn't stop thinking about you. Thank you for being here. For the dress, for the flowers, for everything. Always. That's what best friends do. Mia pulled back, wiped her eyes. Now go be married. I expect brunch updates at least weekly. After Mia left Marco driving her home, because of course Dante had insisted Sophie and Dante stood in their new living room. Max sprawled at their feet, the brownstone settling around them with creaks and sighs. So, Sophie said. We're married. We're married, Dante confirmed. That happened fast. Lightning fast. Completely insane. He pulled her close. Any regrets? Sophie thought about the man she'd met in Central Park 4 weeks ago. About puppy attacks and risotto and conversations that lasted until dawn. About choosing someone despite complications because of complications, with full knowledge of who they were and what they brought to the relationship. None, she said firmly. Not a single one, you? Never, Dante kissed her forehead. You're the best decision I've ever made, Sophie Martinez Romano. The only thing I've ever done that felt completely, perfectly right. Even better than starting your business? Even better than that. Because you're not something I built or achieved or worked for. You're someone I found. Someone who chose me back. That's so much better than anything I could have created myself. They stood there in their new home. Their new life with their new name and their new beginning, and Sophie felt certainty settle in her bones. This was right. He was right. They were right together. Take me upstairs, she whispered. It's our wedding night and I have plans for my husband. Dante's smile was devastating. Lead the way, wife. They made love in their new bed, in their new house, as husband and wife for the first time. It was sweet and urgent and profound, every touch weighted with the knowledge that this was forever now, legally and emotionally and in every way that mattered. Afterward, wrapped in Dante's arms with Max snoring softly on his dog bed in the corner, Sophie felt peace wash over her. I love you, she murmured, already half asleep. I love you more, Dante countered. Ti amo, amor mio. For always. For always, Sophie agreed. Outside their window, Brooklyn settled into its nighttime rhythm. The city continued its endless motion. Life went on as it always did. But inside their brownstone, everything had changed. Sophie Martinez Romano now had married Dante Romano. And somehow, impossibly perfectly, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Like they'd been meant to find each other all along. Like a puppy running across a meadow had been fate disguised as chaos. Like everything had led to this moment, this man, this life. Sophie fell asleep smiling, her hand in Dante's, their future stretching ahead like an endless summer. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new complications, new adventures. But tonight? Tonight they were just newlyweds, happy and in love and exactly where they were supposed to be. Together. Finally, completely, forever together. 6 months later, Sophie's life had transformed in ways she'd never imagined and in ways that felt completely natural at the same time. Her business had tripled not because Dante had bought clients or pulled strings, Sophie had vetoed that immediately, but because word had spread organically. The best dog walker in Manhattan now had proper headquarters, professional insurance, and the resources to expand thoughtfully without sacrificing quality. She'd hired 2 employees, Carmen, a 23-year-old former veterinary assistant with a gift for nervous dogs, and James, a retired canine handler who brought decades of experience and a patience Sophie deeply admired. Both had been carefully vetted, both were excellent with animals. Both understood that they were building something meaningful together. The ground floor of the brownstone had been transformed into exactly what Sophie needed, an office with a proper desk and filing system. A supply room with everything organized by type and size, a small waiting area where clients could drop off or pick up their dogs, and a mudroom that opened directly to the backyard. She kept her original 18 clients because they felt like family, added 6 more that fit her philosophy and standards, and maintained a waiting list of 15 that she reviewed quarterly, quality over quantity always. And twice a week, Dante joined her on morning walks. He'd become something of a local celebrity in certain circles, the dangerous businessman, who could be seen at 8 a.m. in Central Park walking a golden retriever and laughing with his wife. It humanized him, people said. Made him approachable. showed a side of Dante Romano that the business world never saw. Dante didn't care about any of that. He just loved spending mornings with Sophie and Max. Loved the simplicity of it, the normalcy, the way walking dogs made the rest of his complicated life feel manageable. Romano Enterprises had indeed shifted over the past 6 months, cleaner now, more legitimate, though still powerful. Dante had made good on his promise to Sophie. Anything that threatened innocence or crossed his ethical lines had been eliminated from his portfolio. Some partners had objected. Those partners were no longer partners. The Vitali situation had stayed resolved. Roberto had indeed moved to Sicily, and, from what Marco's sources indicated, had retired completely from any business interests. Apparently, whatever Dante had said or done that night had been thorough enough to permanently discourage any thoughts of revenge or retaliation. Sophie didn't ask for details. Didn't want to know. She'd learned to live with the gray areas of Dante's world, to trust that he operated with a moral compass even when that compass pointed in directions the law didn't recognize. Besides, she had her own world to manage now. One morning in early April, 6 months and 2 weeks after their wedding, Sophie and Dante sat on their brownstone steps. Max sprawled between them, watching the sunrise paint Brooklyn in shades of gold and pink. "Do you ever miss it?" Sophie asked, not for the first time. "Your old life, before the chaos of me and dogs and early morning walks?" Dante considered the question seriously, like he always did. He never dismissed her worries, never laughed them off. "I miss the simplicity sometimes," he admitted. "When my biggest problem was a difficult business deal or a challenging negotiation, life was ... cleaner, more straightforward. But I don't miss being alone." He pulled her closer, his arm around her shoulders. "I don't miss coming home to an empty apartment every night. I don't miss feeling like success was all that mattered, like making money and building an empire was a substitute for actually living." He kissed the top of her head. "Now I have a wife who drags me out of bed at 6:30 a.m. to walk a dog who once attacked me. Now I have a home that smells like dog food and coffee and Sophie's shampoo. Now I have business meetings where I zone out thinking about what to cook for dinner, and board members who've learned not to schedule anything before 10 a.m. because I'm walking dogs with my wife." His smile was soft, content, deeply happy. "I don't miss anything about before, Sophie. This US, Max. This messy, complicated, beautiful life, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be." Max barked once, as if in agreement, then rolled over to present his belly for scratches. Sophie laughed, obliging him. "We should get going. Morning pack in 20 minutes. And Carmen is expecting me to brief her on the new client's anxiety issues. Lead the way, Mrs. Martinez Romano." They walked hand in hand toward the park, Max trotting between them, the spring morning warm on their faces. Sophie thought about the October day when a puppy had slipped his collar and run toward a dangerous stranger. She thought about fear and risk and crazy choices that had changed everything. She thought about love, the kind that shows up, that stays, that protects without suffocating, that grows deeper instead of fading over time. "Hey," Dante said suddenly, stopping mid-stride. "Thank you." Sophie turned to look at him. "For what?" "For not running away that day. For taking a chance on the guy in the expensive suit who let a puppy attack him. For seeing past all the complicated parts to the person underneath." His eyes were soft, vulnerable in the morning light. "For loving me anyway. For choosing me every single day, even when my world makes it difficult." Sophie stood on her toes, kissed him gently. "Thank you for being worth it. For tracking me down through 40 phone calls. For making risotto from scratch. For funding dog shelters anonymously. For being both the dangerous man who protects me and the gentle one who scratches Max's ears exactly the way he likes. I'm still working on balancing those parts. You're doing great." Sophie took his hand again, started walking. "Besides, I love both sides of you. The fierce protector and the man who cries during dog adoption commercials. I don't cry during those commercials. Dante, I've seen you. You absolutely cry. Fine, they're very emotional, okay? Those dogs deserve good homes." Sophie laughed, that bright, genuine sound Dante had fallen in love with, and he laughed with her, and Max bounded ahead like he knew exactly where they were going. At the park entrance, Carmen was waiting with 3 dogs regulars who loved the morning routine. She waved when she saw Sophie approaching. "Morning, boss. Ready for the new anxiety case?" "Bring it on." Sophie's days had found a new rhythm over the past 6 months. Mornings are for walking her pack plus Dante twice a week, just her and Carmen and James the other days. Afternoons were for administration scheduling, billing, client consultations, business planning. Evenings were for Dante cooking together, talking about their days, planning their future. And slowly, carefully, they'd started talking about that future in more specific terms. "I want kids," Dante had said one night about 3 months into their marriage. "Not immediately, not until you're ready, but someday. I want to have children with you, Sophie. See pieces of both of us and tiny humans who'll probably love dogs more than they love us." Sophie had smiled, her hand resting on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "I want that too, maybe in a year or two. Once the business is fully established, once we've had more time just being us. Whenever you're ready, amor. I'm not in a rush. I just wanted you to know I'm thinking about it. About our future, our family, all of it." Now, 6 months in, Sophie found herself thinking about it more and more. About the empty bedrooms upstairs. About Max having children to play with. About Dante as a father protective, devoted, probably worrying himself sick over every scraped knee and bad dream. The image made her smile. One evening in late April, Sophie came home from a particularly long day, a difficult client. A dog who'd gotten into a fight at the park, not her fault, but stressful. And administrative headaches she hadn't anticipated to find Dante in the kitchen, cooking dinner and humming along to Italian music playing from hidden speakers. "Bad day?" he asked, reading her expression immediately. "Long day, complicated day. Day where I questioned every business decision I've ever made." Dante wiped his hands on a towel, crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. "Tell me about it." So she did. She told him about the difficult client who'd accused her of not exercising their dog enough, despite GPS tracking proving. Otherwise, about the park fight that had required diplomatic negotiation with 2 angry owners. About realizing her insurance needed updating and the paperwork was giving her a headache. Dante listened, his hand rubbing soothing circles on her back, not trying to fix it or minimize it, just being present. "You know what helps me when I have those days?" he said when she finished. "What?" Remembering why I started. "Not the money or the success or proving something to my father, but the actual core reason wanting to build something that mattered, that I could be proud of, that made a difference even if it was small." He tilted her face up to look at him. "You're doing that, Sophie, every single day. Those 18 dogs you walk, they're happier, healthier, better behaved because of you. Those owners, they trust you with their family members. That's not nothing. That's everything." Sophie felt tears prick her eyes. "I know, I just sometimes forget when clients are being difficult. That's what I'm here for. To remind you how incredible you are when you forget." He kissed her forehead. "Now go change into something comfortable. Dinner's in 20 minutes and I made your favorite. You made risotto on a Wednesday?" "I made risotto on a Wednesday because my wife had a hard day and deserves something that takes patience and care. Just like her." Sophie changed, came back downstairs to find the table set, candles lit, Max waiting patiently nearby for any scraps that might fall. They ate and talked, and Sophie felt the stress of the day melt away. This, she thought. This is what marriage is supposed to be. Someone who listens, who supports, who makes risotto on a Wednesday because you had a hard day. After dinner, they sat on their back steps with wine, watching the evening settle over Brooklyn, Max chasing fireflies in the yard like he had any chance of catching them. "I've been thinking," Sophie said carefully. "Dangerous words from my wife." "Shut up," she nudged him playfully. "I've been thinking about what we talked about. About kids. About timing." Dante went very still beside her. And I think maybe I'm ready. Not right this second, but soon. Maybe start trying in a few months. Give my business time to adjust to Carmen and James taking on more responsibility, but not wait years like we originally planned. Dante turned to face her fully, his expression a mixture of joy and disbelief. "You're serious?" "I'm serious." "You'd be an amazing father, Dante, and I want to see that. Want to watch you teach our kids Italian, walk Max with them, worry yourself sick when they start dating." Sophie smiled. "Want to build a family with you. Not just the 2 of us, but ... more. Sophie Martinez Romano." Dante cupped her face in both hands. "Are you telling me you want to have my babies?" "I'm telling you I want to have our babies. Plural, probably. This house is big enough for at least 2, maybe 3. 3? Dante's smile was radiant. You'd give me 3 children? Let's start with 1 and see how it goes. Sophie laughed. But yes, eventually, if biology cooperates and everything works out. I want to build a big, loud, messy family with you. Dante kissed her then, deep and grateful and full of promise. When they broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. You've given me everything I never knew I wanted, he whispered. A home, a purpose beyond work, a reason to wake up excited every morning. And now you're offering me a family, children, legacy. Sophie, His voice cracked slightly. Sophie saw tears in his eyes. I never thought I deserved this, he continued quietly. This much happiness, this much love, this much ... normalcy. I thought my life was going to be deals and dangers and dying alone in some expensive apartment. And then a puppy attacked me in a park and changed everything. Max really is the hero of this story. Sophie agreed, smiling through her own tears. He absolutely is. Dante glanced at the dog, who'd given up on fireflies and was now digging enthusiastically in a flower bed. We should probably stop him from destroying your landscaping. Probably, neither moved, both content to sit there in the gathering darkness, hands intertwined, futures spreading out before them like an endless road of possibility. Later that night, lying in bed with Dante's arms around her and Max snoring softly on his bed in the corner, Sophie reflected on the past 6 months. It hadn't all been easy. There had been adjustments, compromises, moments of frustration when their worlds collided in uncomfortable ways. Moments when Sophie worried she'd made a mistake, moved too fast, chosen wrong. But there had been so much more of the good moments. Morning walks where they didn't need to talk, just existed together. Evenings cooking side by side, hip-checking each other away from the stove. Nights of making love, of conversation, of simply being together. Days of building their life brick by brick, choice by choice, moment by moment. What are you thinking about? Dante asked softly, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. Everything, us, how we got here. How a puppy running across a meadow led to this, to marriage and business expansion and talking about babies. No regrets? None. Sophie turned to face him in the darkness. Not a single one. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Me too. Dante pulled her closer. I love you, Sophie. More than I did yesterday, less than I will tomorrow. Forever increasing, never diminishing. That's very poetic for midnight. I'm Italian. We're naturally poetic, Sophie laughed, kissing him softly. I love you too, forever increasing, never diminishing. That's perfect. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, hearts beating in sync, their golden retriever guardian watching over them from his corner of the room. Outside, Brooklyn settled into its nighttime rhythm. The city that never slept hummed its constant song. Life continued its eternal motion. But inside their brownstone, their home, their sanctuary, their carefully built life, everything was exactly as it should be. Sophie Martinez Romano and Dante Romano, unlikely couple brought together by a puppy's impulse and kept together by choice, by love, by the daily decision to keep choosing each other despite complications and challenges and the occasional difficult client. 1 year after that October morning in Central Park, Sophie stood on the same sheep meadow with Dante and Max, celebrating their first anniversary. Can you believe it's been a year? Sophie asked, watching Max chase butterflies with undiminished enthusiasm. Feels like yesterday. Feels like forever. Feels exactly right. Dante kissed her temple. Best year of my life, Amor. Not even close. Mine too. Sophie leaned into him. Even with all the complications. Especially with the complications. They make it real. They stood there in the morning light in the place where everything had started, and Sophie felt gratitude wash over her. Gratitude for puppies who ran to strangers. Gratitude for men who laughed instead of getting angry. Gratitude for the courage to say yes to dinner, to love, to marriage, to a life completely different from anything she'd planned. Thank you, Max, Sophie said aloud, watching the dog. For being the bravest puppy in New York. Max barked once, pleased with himself, and bounded over for pets and praise. He knew, Dante said, scratching behind Max's ears. That morning, he knew exactly what he was doing. Knew I needed you, knew you needed me. Knew we needed each other. Dogs are smarter than we give them credit for. This one especially, Dante smiled. He's earned unlimited treats for life. He already has unlimited treats. then double unlimited, triple, whatever. The mathematical equivalent is of "this dog saved my life and deserves everything." Sophie laughed, that bright, genuine sound, and Dante laughed with her, and Max wagged his tail with the satisfaction of a dog who knows he's loved, appreciated, and absolutely right about everything. They walked home through the spring morning, a married couple with a business and a brownstone and a future full of possibility. They talked about dinner plans and weekend projects and whether to paint the spare bedroom blue or yellow when the time came to turn it into a nursery. Normal things. Married things, beautiful, ordinary, perfect things. Behind them, if anyone had been watching, they would have seen just another couple walking their dog through Central Park. Nothing special. Nothing remarkable, just part of the city's endless tapestry of human life. But Sophie and Dante knew better. They knew about fate disguised as chaos. They knew about puppies who run to exactly the right strangers. They knew about love that starts with laughter and grows into everything. And they knew with absolute certainty that they'd found exactly what they'd been looking for without even knowing they were searching. Each other forever, starting with a puppy attack on an October morning and continuing through every morning after.